So let's take a look at a term that some computer users know very, very well, but others may just have heard of but don't really know what it means. The term is serif, and sometimes we also use a term sans-serif. So what does serif mean? Well, serif refers to fonts. So you know fonts are the different styles of lettering that you can have on your computer, in interfaces, when you're writing, in web pages. Every time you use a piece of text it's rendered in a font. And those fonts can be serif or sans-serif, or sometimes special things like symbols or display types or things like that. But most of the fonts that you read are either serif or sans-serif. So here's an example of what a serif font looks like. This is Times. That's the name of the font. And you can see here the word MacMost written in serif font. So to see the difference, here's MacMost written in Helvetica, which is a sans-serif font. What's the difference? Well, the difference is how the corners and the lines end. When you see these special ends there in the M's and also in the S here, you also commonly see it like in capital T's and lots of different letters. These little flares there at the end are the serifs. So these are called serif fonts. Sans-serif is simply without serifs. Sans is French for not or without. So you have sans-serif and serif fonts. What's the purpose of the serifs? Well, it goes back before computers when these fonts were actually used in printing, going back to early days of printing and even stone carving and writing before then. And some people say that having serifs makes text easier to read. Creates kind of these lines that help your eyes flow. I've heard that. I've heard lots of other reasonings behind it. I'm no expert here in the design of fonts, but it seems that a lot of times you see large bodies of text written in serif fonts, and then things like headlines and titles and smaller pieces of text written in sans-serif fonts. Although I think fonts today, sans-serif fonts particularly, are clear enough that a lot of times they're used for large bodies of text as well. Now here's an example of looking through a list. You're choosing a list in Pages, Numbers, or Keynote, and one of the things you won't find is you won't find an indicator whether or not a font is serif or sans-serif. It's something people talk about, but you won't be able to say just show me the serif fonts or just show me the sans-serif fonts. Sometimes you can get clues though. I mean, obviously here you can see that some are serif and some are sans-serif. But sometimes sans-serif is referred to as Gothic, and you'll find this reflected in the names of fonts. So for instance, the font Century has regular Century, which you can see there is a serif font, and Century Gothic, which is a sans-serif font. So in all cases, at least all cases I've ever seen, if the word Gothic is the name of the font, it means it's a sans-serif version of that font. But then there are fonts that don't have the word Gothic at all that are sans-serif, and others that are serif. So you really have to go and take a look at the font itself to tell which one it is. And in most cases for typical users it doesn't matter which one you choose. But it is useful to know what a font is, whether it's serif or sans-serif, or if somebody tells you to maybe use a serif font instead of the one you're using, or a sans-serif font instead of the one you're using. You know what it is that they're referring to.